Welcome back to GGW, episode 6.
Episode 6. Here we are. Happy Sunday,
Yeah.
everybody.
Today we're going to talk about body image, which I know is like such a huge topic, and I honestly feel like women everywhere these days have some sort of issue with body image. And whether that be like your weight, or if you have a perfect body, then it's probably you're focused more on your face, or like, oh my gosh, my nose is too big, or my lips are too small, or I wish my eye color was blue, or my hair or my skin. Like, it's always something. So I feel like this is just so relatable to so many people. So that's why we are going to talk about it, because Claire and I have both, like any other woman, struggled with body image issues, and we're going to talk today about our struggles with that, and then how we learn to foster self-love and self-acceptance. But since we have so much to say on the topic, Claire today is going to interview moi, and then next week Sunday we'll do the part 2 where I'll interview Claire about the same stuff.
Yes.
Sound good?
Perfect. So should we just get rolling?
Have to get real raw with you guys.
Yes. Okay, here we go. So Moni, when did you first start struggling with body image issues?
For me, my first memory of like feeling kind of insecure was when I was in track in high school, like my sophomore year, which is kind of late for a lot of people, but I don't know, I was always enrolled in a sport growing up, sometimes multiple, and I was just always pretty like fit and petite. But yeah, my first memory would be changing in the locker room during track season, and I was crazy fit. I've always carried like a little bit of like pudge on my lower stomach, which really it was nothing. I could literally just pinch like some skin between my fingers and I thought it was fat. But I remember changing in the locker room and like looking around at girls that were just very, very thin, didn't have any fat on their body, and me comparing myself to them and being like, oh my gosh, I remember thinking that I was fat, which is crazy now looking back at pictures. And it's just so sad to me to think that I thought that way, because I was so fit and so healthy, and yet in my mind, I was just so tuned in on my imperfections that I legit thought that I was fat.
Yeah.
So that would be my first memory of it. But I also just think that like young girls, especially, and men too, but we learn from our parents and what we saw growing up. So unfortunately, since a lot of women do struggle with body image issues, including our moms when they were younger, they maybe struggled with body image issues. Like, our generation isn't the first generation to deal with this.
No.
So for me, I saw a lot of my mom going on diets and always weighing herself every day, like measuring her waist in the mirror. And like, she didn't know that I was like absorbing that and like kind of learning from that behavior, but like I did. And so seeing her so critical with her body and herself kind of like rubbed off on me, and I learned to like view myself very critically, and that was never her intention with it. And I think it's our job as adults, because my parents were literally pretty close to perfect. Like, they were amazing parents, but no parent is perfect. So this isn't like a blame game by any means, but it's our job as adults to then look at what we've learned and what we've picked up on, and figure out what we want to keep as a belief and what we no longer agree with and what we want to get rid of.
Yes, man, that's so relatable to me too. So that brings me to question number 2. Do you have any examples of your struggles with body image? Any others that you can think of?
That whole, 10 years was me struggling with body image. Yes, like in college, like I said, I was always enrolled in a sport. So even though my diet maybe wasn't ideal, it didn't really matter because I worked out so much. So I still kept pretty like lean. But when I got into college and I wasn't playing a sport, I definitely gained the dreaded freshman 15. Mm-hmm. And that pretty hard, because I was my own worst critic, and I focused on all of my imperfections, and image to me was like a big thing. So what did I do? I went on this crazy starvation diet. And Claire, I know you remember this, but it was insane. It was so unhealthy. I would never ever do it again. I would literally eat 500 calories a day. That was it. And I did that for like 50 days. And I know you remember this, Claire, because one weekend we went up north and I brought all my own food for the weekend, which I was eating such a small amount that like all my food for the weekend literally fit in like one bag,
Yeah.
one like lunch bag. And yeah, I just like didn't eat anything. Like your parents were making like this nice dinner and I'm pretty sure I just put some like lettuce on my plate. Like it was sad.
Yeah.
But I ended up losing a lot of weight, so strict. But yeah, I did end up losing a lot of weight, obviously, the unhealthy way. Like I didn't look good. I looked very thin. I was the thinnest that I ever have been. But I also lost a lot of muscle mass and I just didn't feel good. Like I was very low energy. But I think that is also what maybe led to me breaking my hip too, because I was so undernourished. Food was so fearful to me. Like I just looked at food with fear because I was like, wow, this stuff is going to make me gain weight. But it's just learning to change your views on that and knowing that food is nourishment. But I had just never viewed it that way. Like it was just a scary thing to me because I don't know, like I just had this deep fear of like getting fat and thought that was going to be like my life would be over if I gained 5 pounds. So I went on that crazy diet and then just really severely like restricted my food intake and I would weigh myself every day, which now I don't do that anymore because weight is just a number and it's also not super accurate because if you're drinking a lot of water, if you're working out a lot, like if you eat a little bit of salt the day before, just a lot of things can make your weight fluctuate. Also, if you have more like muscle mass, so it's triggering to me and it's not my measure of health and it shouldn't really be anybody's measure of health, I don't think. But I would weigh myself every day in the morning and even if I was up 0.5 pounds, half a pound, I would then restrict my diet even more the next day and have like what I called an apple day. So I'd only eat like 5 apples the next day, which is, yeah, it was just like something that I could control. And it's so sad looking back that I treated my body that way because it was definitely not an act of self-love. It was out of fear and like self-hate almost, but I didn't know it at the time. That was a big example of my body image issues, a specific one with food. And then another one on the other end was me working out to the max. And I think movement and exercise is amazing, but there has to be a balance. And I definitely did not have a balance. Like on my off days, I would work out 2 to 3 times a day and doing like HIIT workouts, following cycle class, just like obsessively working out. And I also, if I ate something that I labeled as like bad in my diet, I would almost punish myself. Subconsciously, I wasn't aware at the time that I was doing this, but I would just go like extra hard at the gym after that or like really, really push it to just try to burn off whatever bad thing that I ate, which is also just so stressful to your body because your adrenal glands like that just produces so much cortisol, especially for women in your body working out like that. Like that's really, it just is telling your body that you're in a stressful, unsafe environment, which isn't true. And you don't want to produce all those hormones and cortisol in your body. And that's how people can end up with like adrenal fatigue.
So after going through all that, Moni, what advice would you give to someone who might be going through the same thing and struggling with their own body image issues?
So just through my own personal development and growth, I'm going to share like 5 tips and tricks that I've learned to foster body acceptance and self-love. And the first one that is so important to me is changing your perspective. So perspective is everything. And I learned this by just being thrown into work, but say I was like pinching my stomach fat, right? And being like, oh my gosh, just so in my head, very like self-centered in that way of being like, I need to lose 10 pounds and just trapped in that like negative thinking. I did home health nursing for this little girl, honestly, like changed my life and like just really opened up my eyes because she was 10 years old and she had a trach, couldn't breathe on her own. She had a G tube in her stomach, so she couldn't, like her digestive system didn't work at all. We had to give her all of her medications through this little tube that went into her stomach. That's how we fed her. So just like really no quality of life. And so here I am in the morning, like pinching my stomach fat and being like, oh my gosh, I have to get rid of this. Just so in my head. And then I go over to this little girl's house and I'm caring for this girl who I'm giving her food through this G tube and her intestines don't work and she can't breathe on her own. And I'm like, Monica, what the fuck? Like, and I'm like looking at my stomach. I'm like, I'm so thankful and grateful that I have like intestines and a stomach that works. Like, how could I ever hate my body? Like, how could I hate my stomach? Like, everything is working perfectly. So she like really, really opened up my eyes on like what I thought my problems were.
Right.
Every time after her, it would just be like a reality check. Like, what I think my problems are not problems at all. Like, it just really changed my perspective and made me very, very grateful for my healthy body. And if it wasn't the little girl that I cared for, then I would get a reality check in the ER, and I would thinking the same thing, like, oh my gosh, I wish I had abs. And then I would go into work and I'd care for a patient with Crohn's disease who had an ostomy, like my age. Again, I'm just like, oh my God, like, how could I be talking to myself this way? Like, I love my healthy intestine. I love my stomach. And just like changing my perspective in that way and focusing on my health, that I'm grateful for my healthy intestines, like really, really helped me foster like body acceptance. So that is one way, is to change your perspective. And then another way, number two, something that can help you foster body acceptance is to know that you are not your body. And this maybe sounds like a little bit woo-woo to people, but I have always believed that we're spiritual beings having a human experience instead of humans having a spiritual experience. And when you look at it that way, it's like we are souls that were given this body as a vessel. And this is like our one home. And yeah, that maybe sounds weird, but we have to be grateful for what we have and know that, yeah, we're so much more than our outer appearance. So that's another tip that has helped me to change my thinking. Number three, another huge one, is to stop comparing. And this is a really hard one to do, especially with Instagram. And nowadays when people have Facetune, like probably 99% of the stuff that we see on Instagram is fake. That's like not actually how somebody looks, but it's so hard. Like, we're comparing ourselves to somebody's perfect picture, right? And people can make their skin look so clear and beautiful. They can change their eye color. Now I saw one that it makes their lips look bigger, like a baby face. Like, we just look like porcelain dolls. But it's super important not to compare ourselves to anybody else. Be grateful for what you have. And something that I did was remove anybody on Instagram or any sort of social media that I would compare myself to or that would make me feel bad about myself. And that was active self-love for me. So yeah, it's like one thing if you are following like a fitness model and it motivates you, but you have to be like very honest with yourself, because I would say that I was following all these like fitness people to motivate me. If somebody's motivating me, I would feel like, wow, that's so inspiring. And I would feel like happy and energetic about that. But for me, when I would see those pictures, I would just get really down on myself. And so it wasn't actually motivating me. It was making me feel bad about myself. So I just removed all those people from my page and started following more like inspirational quotes pages and just stuff like that, so that I wasn't as triggered. But that is something super important to do. If it doesn't make you, if you're scrolling on Instagram and something doesn't make you feel good, then get rid of it. Like, you only want to have like positive stuff on there. That's kind of like what we're here to do too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was number three. And then number four is to view food as nourishment. So we really, and I'm saying we, because me too, need to not be afraid of food, but we need to be afraid of not loving ourselves. Like, think about how much energy you spend thinking about what you're going to eat, thinking about what you can and can't eat, thinking about what time you're going to get your workout in. All of these things, like related to body image, consume so much of our energy. Mm-hmm. And really, if we would focus that energy into something like curing cancer, like we would have a cure for cancer by now. Like, the amount of time that I've spent obsessing about like, what am I going to eat for my next meal? Like, what time am I going to go to the gym? It just takes up so much mental space. And it's just like a good way to get out of that cycle is to say to yourself, okay, how can I be a better person today? Who can I be there for today? Like, how can I help someone today? Mm-hmm. And that just helps you get out of the self-centered cycle of body image and focus your energy onto something positive. And then in return, like when you help somebody else, that also makes you feel better. So that can give you a little bit of a boost too. And then the last one, number 5, is just we're not here on this earth to spend our whole day obsessing about food and our weight. And like, I'll just say that one more time because it's so important. We're not here on this earth to spend our whole day focusing on food or weight or how we look. Like, we're so much deeper than that. But then my last point, number 5, tip number 5, and last and final one, thanks for sticking around and listening to all of these, is to listen to your body. So focus more on about how your body feels rather than how it looks. So that just kind of goes more in line with like intuitive eating and like asking your body what it wants and not being so obsessed about like calories and different diet trends. Yeah, just listening to your body. Stop eating when you're full. Don't be like afraid of fat. Like, fat serves a purpose in our bodies. Don't really like cut any one group out. Like, I don't think it's ever good to do like a no fat diet or a no carb diet. Like, all of these whole foods that were grown by the earth are here for a reason. Like sweet potatoes, maybe has high carbs, but like that's not bad for you. So just listening to your body and giving it what it needs, resting it when it needs it. This was not only for diet, but with working out too. Give your body a rest day. Like, that is so good and like a loving act for your body. So yeah, those are my 5 tips on how to foster body acceptance. Yeah. And if any of those really resonated with you, we'd love to like hear your feedback, or if you have any struggles or questions with body image, feel free to leave us a comment and we'll definitely get back to you. Yeah. And yeah, we're all in this together because like I said, every woman that I've ever met has had something that they've struggled with. And if it's not related to weight, then it is something on their face. Like, it's always just something. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening. We're so grateful to have you here on this journey with us. And if you liked this video, give us a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. That just means a lot to us, and we know that we have listeners and that you guys want to hear more. Tune in next Sunday for me interviewing Claire Bear.
Woo! You'll get to hear a little bit of my story too. So we'll see you next Sunday.
Yay. Bye. Bye.